again. This is part 3 of Body Battles. I'm Steve Wohlberg. I'm here with Jack McIntosh, who is a health educator, and we're talking about how to strengthen you, your body, for the battles of life, so that you don't die early, so you can be happier, you can be healthier, you can live longer. And the first couple programs, we've talked about how it's really not that complicated in order to do this, that many of the solutions to so many of the struggles that we have these days are simple. They're simple, like eating a good diet and taking a walk and getting a good night's sleep and breathing fresh air. And so we're going to continue along that theme, and we're going to focus on this program, which is called the Eden Diet, going back to the beginning and seeing what kind of food is really the best for us in order to fight the battles of life. So, Jack, again, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Blessing to have you. And I'd like to start out with just a couple texts. I think this is a good one to begin with. Genesis. We go all the way back to Genesis. We're going to call this program the Eden Diet.
Back to the beginning.
Back to the beginning. So Genesis 1:29, God said, "Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for food." So this is God talking to Adam and eventually to Eve and also to all of us about a diet that is optimal, that's good for us. And before I turn you loose, let me just read a couple more texts that I really like. In Genesis chapter 2, verse 8. It says, "The Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed." I like this verse. God planted a garden, and he put man in the garden. And verse 15 also says that the Lord God took the man and put him into the garden of Eden to dress it or cultivate it and to keep it. And that just impresses me that part of God's original plan for human beings, part of the owner's manual, you might say, from the Creator, is that we should cultivate, grow, and we should eat food from the ground.
Yes,
food
in
from
a natural environment.
Yeah, in a natural environment. So let's continue on. Talk about that.
Sure. Well, yes, he placed him in a garden. What was in that garden? Trees, flowers, fruit, food in general, as he said, trees that yield seed and fruit. These are all natural things that we find out in nature that comes right from the hand of the Creator, unprocessed, so on. Now, when this was given, there was no sin problem. This is the first thing to realize. This was the perfect environment. And guess what kind of diet this was? The perfect diet, in keeping with the sinless, perfect environment.
Okay.
So when we pay attention to this instruction that was given to us in the beginning about what kind of fuel we should put into the body, we find that it protects us from disease, all kinds of disease, heart disease, Alzheimer's, diabetes, hypertension, on and on and on. You know, the lifestyle diseases that do so much to create the mortality in this country and create the risk factors for disease. So it's really important to realize that this is the perfect diet that was given to us in the beginning. And when we pay attention to it, we reap the benefits, the blessing that comes from paying attention to the Creator. For instance, let me give you one example. In the morning, when I get up, I have breakfast, of course, and one of the things I will have whole grain toast because it's whole wheat, has everything in it, all the vitamins, the minerals, and so on. But I have a choice when I get up in the morning. I can put margarine on that toast, or I can put Eden butter. You say, wait a minute, what's Eden butter?
Yeah, what is
I'm so glad you asked.
What is Eden butter?
That's the avocado. You see, it has fat just like the margarine, but it's not artificial fat. It is fat that is locked in fiber. And it has antioxidants. The margarine is digested. It has, you need to have an emulsifier because it's a naked fat, has no fiber, right? So it has to be emulsified, and that takes cholesterol to do that, bile, to emulsify it. If I eat the avocado, instead of releasing bile to digest it, it's digested way down in the lower part of the intestines, and that makes a huge difference in our health. So, Eden butter.
Good. Well, I didn't know you were going to say that, but I'm thinking about my breakfast this morning, and I had 2 slices of Ezekiel 4:9 sprouted bread.
All right.
And then I put on top of that my Eden butter. I eat a lot of avocados, and then I put on top of that some beans that my wife made, and I cooked them or just heated them up and put them on top of that with a little bit of, I don't remember exactly what kind of a dressing I put on there, but it was good.
Yeah.
And it was, so I had my Eden butter today, and that's good. I feel good.
Let's talk about those beans. Those beans are, remember what he said, seed-bearing plants? Guess what? Legumes are seeds. So are walnuts, so are almonds. So is wheat. All those things are seed. So seed-bearing plants provide the protein, the vitamins, and very critically, the minerals that we need. We don't talk much about minerals these days. We talk about vitamins. But all those natural foods, high-fiber foods, fat, locked in fiber like the walnuts and the avocados, those are the things that come right from the hand of the Creator. And if you do that, you are protecting yourself from a host of diseases, lifestyle diseases that are out there today that are killing people left and right.
Yeah, and we all know that we're no longer in Eden. Obviously, we've come down a long way.
Yes, we have.
Sin has entered the world, and we're exposed to, all kinds of temptations.
Processed foods.
And we get old, and we eventually die. We can't completely avoid that in this world, but
yes.
You're saying that if we go back and fuel ourselves with the original diet, we're going to enhance our body's ability to deal with these issues, to fight the body battles, and we're going to, the goal again is to have less disease, to live longer, to be happier, to be more useful through such a simple thing as eating more simple food that comes out of the ground.
Yes, paying attention to what the Creator said right in the beginning. Now, I want to move to something else that we need to understand about fuel and food in general. Okay. This is a statement by Dr. David Perlmutter, and I'm going to read the statement and I'm going to explain why he said what he said. Now listen to this. It says, "We recognize that food is far more than protein, carbohydrates, fat, and micronutrients." Listen to this. "And that food really does represent information." Food really does represent information. Now listen. "The foods that we consume are instructing our genes." Let me say that again. The foods that we are consuming, are instructing our genes, giving instruction to our genes. And I'll unpack that in a minute. Therefore, that's a very empowering notion. You can change your genetic destiny based upon the food choices that you make. So, here's what's happening now. The wisdom of the Creator. Did He say in Genesis that you were instructing your genes? The answer is no, He didn't. But by doing the simple thing that He asked us to do, we see the implications, and they go far wider than we expected. Who knew that you were going to be instructing your genes when you drink a sweet drink with high fructose corn syrup, or you eat an avocado on your whole grain toast? Who knew that you were instructing your genes? Now, what do we mean by that?
Yeah, what do we mean by that?
Well, it turns out that we have 2 basic kinds of genes in the body. We have the worker genes. They make the proteins and they make the hormones and, the enzymes and so on. They do the work. Think of it sort of as like your hard drive on your computer. It does the grunt work, if you will. Sitting on top of your hard drive is the software,
Okay.
Microsoft Word or whatever it is, right? And it tells the hard drive what to do. Those genes are referred to as epigenes, or the epigenetic system. And it turns out that the software system, the epigenes, is far greater in number than the worker genes, because the Creator had in mind to be able to have a sophisticated system that would take care of a sophisticated person, you see. And so the epigenetic, epi means above. It sits on top of the worker genes, if you will, and it gives instructions. Now, everybody knows that software is programmable. Is that correct?
Right.
Software is programmable. In the same way, your genes can be programmed. When you put food into your mouth, what are you doing? You're programming your genes.
Wow.
You are turning off bad genes and turning on good genes if you use Eden butter and fresh fruits and vegetables and nuts and grains. Turning off bad genes, turning on good genes. That's the epigenetic system.
And then the genes tell the hardware what to do.
Exactly.
Got it.
But if I go ahead now and instead of putting the natural things on my food, or I'm using all the trans fats, the hydrogenated hard fats,
And the
I'm
processed
eating
food.
processed foods, and I'm drinking high fructose corn syrup, you're also programming your genes. But guess what you're doing now? You're turning on the bad genes that your grandmother gave you or your grandfather, and turning off the good genes. Genetic expression is programmed by food.
Wow.
Who knew that when the Lord gave that instruction in Genesis, He was telling us something extremely important, and that is, you need to program your genes, even though He didn't say that.
Well, so the science of today
Yes,
is validating the original Eden diet.
absolutely. And American Heart Association, American Cancer Society, all of them are telling us, sending the same message. When it comes to fueling your body, you need to eat the natural things that come from nature, unprocessed. Fresh fruits, vegetables, nuts, grains. And the more you go toward the animal-based diet, which came in after sin entered, of course, the more you go toward that diet, the more you're going to turn on the bad genes and turn off the good genes, and create trouble for your heart and your lungs and your body in general, your brain.
So the good diet will help with the body battles. It provides the
Absolutely.
weapons that help tell the hardware what to do.
Yes,
Turns off
the
the bad
weapons-
guys and turns on the good guys.
The weapons of our warfare, as you
Right.
read
In the last
in part
program.
1 and part 2. So these instructions are really critical for us to understand.
So let's talk about some of those simple things that are in the natural foods. I've got a list here that you gave me. Why don't we just go through those as quick as we can and
Sure.
put some more research and make it simple so
All right,
people can
so
understand.
now we're going to put some flesh on the skeleton that we produced here.
Okay.
So it turns out that fiber is very important, the natural fiber that comes from food. Remember I said the avocado, the fat is locked in fiber. When the fat is removed and it becomes naked, you can get oil from avocados. But why do that when you can use the avocado naturally? So it's very important to use the food in the natural environment with the fiber. Now it turns out that fiber is and the phytonutrients that come with the fiber is anti-inflammatory. And inflammation is at the root of heart disease and diabetes and all these lifestyle diseases. So the fiber is really important. The other thing that fiber does is, let's say I have a choice in the morning. I can drink orange juice or I can eat an orange. There's no difference, is there?
Is there?
Or is there?
Is there?
One is naked, that's the orange juice, and the other is locked in fiber. The juice is locked in fiber. If I drink the orange juice, my blood sugar rockets right through the roof. If I eat the orange, I get a rise in my blood sugar, but instead of going like that, a spike, it goes like this, and it rises and rises gradually, gradually, and then it comes down 4 or 5 hours later.
And that's because the sugars are locked in the fiber, and so they're released slower, right?
Slowly, you got it. Okay. That is critical. Slow release of that carbohydrate energy, that sugar in the orange, slow release. So when you have slow release, you don't get a strong insulin response. See, because if I do that with the orange juice, I get a rush of insulin. Because if my blood sugar goes too high, I go into a coma. So the body has to control what they call homeostasis.
Has to compensate.
It's the narrow limits that the body likes to keep things in. So if something goes high, it puts out something to bring it down. And insulin brings down that sugar.
It's like temperature, right? If the temperature is too high, the body works to bring it down.
Bring it down,
if the
yes.
temperature is too low, the body wants to bring it up.
That's that homeostasis thing, to keep it in certain limits. So, this whole notion then of controlling that blood sugar by eating the natural fiber, that's what prevents diabetes. Because when we drink those sweet drinks and we get that rush, several times a day, we exhaust the pancreas, and now the pancreas starts to produce less insulin. And we're eating a lot of fat, animal fat, the burgers, the fast food, French fries, fried in that hydrogenated artificial trans fat, all those things. They create trouble for the body. They create insulin resistance and things like that, and move us toward the diabetic condition. So we want to eat foods that are high in fiber just the way they come from the hand of the Creator.
And foods high in fiber are the foods that are in their natural state.
In the natural states, with all the phytonutrients, the minerals, the vitamins, etc. The Creator has packaged everything in those foods. And we don't have to go look for vitamins over here, look for vitamins over here. As long as it's naturally grown and it's not sprayed and, all those other things, or organic food, that's what we want. And that is the best medicine for the human body. Optimal medicine, if you will, prevention, which, they say an ounce of prevention,
that's right.
That's
worth
the food,
a pound of cure.
is worth the pound of cure. And that's the
Right.
expensive pharmaceuticals to control it. So fiber brings down the inflammation, phytonutrients, and all that.
You mentioned the how do you call
The
it?
alliums. Now
Yes.
that's the onions and the garlic and things like that. They are wonderful for enhancing the immune system that we were talking about in our last program. I make a dressing at home. It's a parsley dressing. It has cashews and it has parsley and a little bit of onion, and I put in 2 cloves of fresh garlic, and I mean that really, you can taste that garlic. That garlic will kill any virus that's down in your gut or any bacteria. It's particularly good for viruses. But fresh garlic is a wonderful immune enhancer. It's part of your battle system.
Okay, and you mentioned the vegetables, the cruciferous vegetables.
Yes, of course, that's the cabbage family, the broccoli, the cabbage, the Brussels sprouts, and things like that. They're particularly good for enhancing your ability to fight cancer, for instance. So all of that's
important. And the fats. Talk to us quickly about the fats.
Saturated fat, you limit that. So the animal products are where you're going to get most of the saturated fat. Coconut oil has saturated fat also in it. But that seems to have some brain enhancement effects. But again, because it's refined and it's removed from the coconut, you want to be careful not to overuse it. It is a saturated fat. But most of where we're getting saturated fat are from animal products, the chicken, the fish, the meat, and so on and so forth. So we want, because that drives the heart disease process, especially the oxidized cholesterol. And speaking of oxidized cholesterol, I want to mention a couple of things that tend to really damage your arteries. There are some foods that are actually dangerous. That from experimental with animals, they have shown that these foods, when they feed them to animals, it will damage the arteries overnight. In other words, within 24 hours, they can start to see fatty streaks in the arteries of these animals when they feed this kind of food to animals. So I know what you're saying. Boy, I better pay attention here and see what these are. That's a good thing to do. Pay attention.
Okay, I'm listening.
Here we go.
Okay.
All right. The first one of these foods that we want to recommend that you avoid is something that most people would never think of, and that is pancake mix. In other words, it sits on the shelf in a box in the supermarket. You say, well, why would that be dangerous? Well, the answer in a word, actually 2 words, is oxidized cholesterol. Because you see, the danger from cholesterol is not cholesterol itself, but oxidized cholesterol that actually damages the arteries. It's a free radical. So the question is, why would pancake mix have oxidized cholesterol in it? The answer is, in a word, eggs. Eggs have large amounts of cholesterol. However, it's not just eggs that pancake mix has. It's powdered eggs. Now think about what happens when you take an egg and make powder out of it. You increase the surface area dramatically. And when you expose that to oxygen, guess what happens? It oxidizes. I first learned this from Dr. Neil
Nedley?
Thank you. Little brain freeze there. Oxidized cholesterol is the real problem when it comes to cholesterol. And he put this in his book. That's where I first found it. Proof Positive. It's a wonderful book, and I encourage people to acquire that book. That oxidized cholesterol is what damages the body overnight. The second one, there are 4 of them. The second one is lard. Lard is a fat that sits out, in the open. We often get it in refried beans and things like that in restaurants, and all of that. So you need to ask questions when you go into a restaurant. Is there lard in this? Because that can damage your arteries.
In one day.
In one day, 24 hours, it can damage because of the oxidation. See, the lard sits out, and there's cholesterol in it, and it oxidizes.
I see.
That's the point.
So when it's exposed to
It's
air.
exposed to air, yes. And Dr. Nedley tells a wonderful story about how they discovered this, but we don't have time for that. Let's move on. Now, this one is kind of counterintuitive. Parmesan cheese. Why would Parmesan cheese damage your arteries overnight? Because most of the time when people eat Parmesan cheese, it's in a little green can, powdered cheese.
You shake it on
and
your
we shake
spaghetti.
it out on our spaghetti, right?
Right.
The spaghetti sauce, and we shake it out. Why would Parmesan cheese, powdered Parmesan cheese, be damaging to your arteries? The answer is, again, oxidized cholesterol. Cheese has cholesterol. When you make it into a powder, you increase the surface area. The amount of cholesterol in it that is exposed dramatically increases, and so it oxidizes.
I see.
And the first part to oxidize is the cheese on the top as it sits in the can. When you do that, guess what you've just done? You've put the most oxidized part of that cholesterol on your food. It will damage your arteries overnight.
In one day.
In one day. That's what the research shows. Oxidized cholesterol sitting there.
And of course, the number one cause of death is still heart disease.
Absolutely. And so you need to be careful of that food. And the last one that we're going to talk about is custards. Custards that are made from eggs and sugar and milk. For some reason, and I don't think we understand all of the reasons, oxidized cholesterol may be is a part of that because there are eggs in it. But for some reason, that combination of milk and sugar and eggs is very damaging. Now, there is a custard that we eat commonly in America, a milk and sugar combination. Can you guess what that is?
Eggnog?
Eggnog, that's one of it.
Is that it?
But there is also ice cream.
Oh, ice cream. Okay.
Ice cream is a milk-sugar combination, and for some reason, ice cream tends to pose an extra risk because of that sugar-milk combination.
I see.
So these are some of the things that we need to be cognizant of that can actually protect us. Again, the principle is simple. Food that comes from the hand of the Creator in as natural a form as possible. Fresh fruits, vegetables, nuts, and grains. And of course the seeds, the legumes, black beans, garbanzo beans. tremendous importance for things like hypertension. We'll get into that when we talk about reversing hypertension. All right?
So when God says in Genesis 1:29, and God said, He's given us these natural products. And
That's
then
a command.
And then He says, to you it shall be for food. If we eat more of that food, of the natural food that God made that grows in the ground in more of its whole state, we're a lot better off, right?
We're protected.
So science supports that this is gonna help us in our body battles, and we all have these battles. And one of the battles is with our tongues and our taste buds and our desires, that we just want to eat all these other things.
And they taste good, by the way.
They do. And we're not saying you should never eat, anything that's not pristine. But the point is to build up the good, and to lessen the bad, and to move step by step more and more toward the Eden diet, toward the original diet. Because down in these last days, at the end of time, we need all the help that we can get in fighting the struggles of life, and dealing with temptation and sin and whatever else we're dealing with. So simplicity is the best. So we hope that you've enjoyed this and been blessed by this. And again, we've got more to come, so see you back for part 4.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Body Battles. Before you go, these health resources are available from White Horse Media. First, our book, End Times Health War, which is loaded with life-changing information about the secrets of health, plus how you can supercharge your health by adding sprouts to your diet and by drinking organic fresh juices. If you would rather read smaller books, we have the same information in these little pocketbooks: Fabulous Health Made Simple, Surviving Toxic Terrorism, Juice Your Way to Fabulous Health, and Sprout Power. You may also be interested in these other wonderful pocketbooks: Help for the Hopeless and Secrets of Inner Peace. They're all short, easy to read, and easy to share. They are all available from White Horse Media.
We hope you've been blessed by this White Horse Media production. To support White Horse Media, please call us at 1-800-78-BIBLE. That's 1-800-782-4253. You may also send your donations by mail to White Horse Media, P.O. Box 130, Priest River, Idaho 83856, or donate online at whitehorsemedia.com.
Wait, before you go, and you know what I'm going to say, if you enjoyed this message, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. To hear more messages, check out our other videos. Have a blessed day.